But tonight, learn to forgive. This is essential. Learn to discriminate between the state in which a man is placed and its occupant. If you can discriminate between the two, you will forgive. For you will recognize the being is trapped in a role. If the part be that of the murderer, he must murder. If he is trapped in the role of sickness, he must be ill. If you do not like the part he is playing, remember, all plays belong to the author who is God. We are the actors who will understand the reason behind the play when the curtain descends and the play has come to its end. I pray it will be tonight. And they don't have questions included on that one. So I think the most essential component to forgiveness in this, because it was a long tangent into the promise there, learn to discriminate between the state in which a man is placed and its occupant. If you can discriminate between the two, you will forgive, for you will recognize the being is trapped in a role. Now, in changing the feeling of I, we talked a lot about, Neville talks about it, and I had some asides where you talk about the fact that the way people were treating you was dependent upon your state. So as you, Neville famously says in that lecture, there's no one to change but self. And that has kind of been memified into, changing your self-concept and things like that. But it's simply that the state you were in was dictating the scenes and the parts that other people in your life were going to play. And so as you've selected a new and different state and moved into that, and this is discussed in Infinite States, this new state that you are either seeking to externalize, and it's just because you haven't adequately identified with it, or you've adequately identified with it and it's beginning to express or is fully expressed, in this new state, none of the old state exists. So the process of forgiving is forgetting that old state completely, rubbing it out of your consciousness, out of your mind, so that it's no longer part of your experience. And this is a natural process. As you pick new and better and better and better states, those old states fade away as long as you do not reanimate them within your mind. Part of helping you do that practically is revision. So if you're mostly in a new state, but you notice there are still little things going on that remind you of the old state, that's where revision is particularly useful. Since I know a lot of people are interested in relationships, though this applies to any other topic, aspect of your life. So let's say that their primary desire is for a romantic relationship, like committed level, either a marriage or not, but a committed, stable, reliable relationship with another person. And in that relationship, say that they have moved into a much better state where maybe before they weren't talking or they were fighting a lot, and now things are much more harmonious. But you have noticed that even though it's primarily you're in this new state of a happy, healthy, secure relationship, you had a little fight, and it was about some insecurity, something that even happened to you when you were a child that you never addressed, that you never revised in your mind, that you never really adjusted your state on that. And so this other person, this seeming other, is going to reflect that. And a way to move out of that would be to revise the original scene. Let's give a really specific here. Let's say one night they're trying to like tease you in a playful way, and they call you a name, and they have no clue that this name that was the same name used in disdain against you when you were a child being bullied in school. Let's say this is the nickname your bully gave you, and your partner who you love and loves you is using it in jest to be playful. But in that moment, you are, to use the contemporary word, triggered. You're brought back to that moment in time when you were a scared and bullied child, and you then start feeling that a little bit towards your partner, or at least you sort of have that flashback experience and you feel the pain of what that was like. Well, now there's a couple ways you could approach this. You could just in mind say, I'm no longer that person. That's not who I am anymore. I know my partner loves me and does not mean that this way. They have no intent of hurting me the way that bully hurt me when I was 10 years old or whatever. So you can just say that in mind and say, this is nothing. And you could even bring it up with them, tell them the experience, and be like, please don't use that name again because of this thing I went through. Obviously the thing you don't want to do is choose to argue with them, hold it against them, and never tell them. You could also choose to revise what they just did. If they used that word you didn't like and something you thought you'd forgot, you could revise the word they used in jest against you, and they may not use it ever again. They may automatically either just stop using it or switch to what you revised it to. And then the other option is you could revise the relationship you had with that bully. You could go back in time to that moment, who you were as that kid who was picked on, and decide, as bold as you want to be, that actually that bully was your friend and they were nice to you. It's up to you what you choose to do. It really is. Knowing that the person who bullied you was only in a state of anguish and pain themselves, and they were cast in the role of a bully by you, will help you to release them from that state and see that, oh no, they weren't like just that way. They weren't only that way. They were just a person playing out that role. That's not who they really are. And I mean, for the most part, usually who the bully really is a kid who's being really abused and tortured themselves. And so they're trying to figure out a way to deal with that. And usually the way is to try to push it out on other people, try to externalize that pain so that they can, get some relief within themselves. And just knowing that, just having the presence of mind that was what was going on, could allow you to forgive, which means see the person who is bullying you as actually loving, desiring to be loved, desiring to love everybody else, to have a harmonious life. And that's who they really are. Who they really are is actually loving and kind, not the version of them you experienced that was nasty. Now, it's always up to you what you want to choose to do. Some people find that revising causes you to a little bit too much identify with the older state, and then it will sort of come up again in a certain way in your present. So they choose not to do it because it sort of can be re-traumatizing. But it's like, in those cases, you just have to ask yourself, okay, well, overall, how much is these incidents, or this one particular incident, is it still creating in my mind and in my world? Is it still causing me to have certain beliefs and therefore experiences that I would rather not have? If it is, you have to do something about it. Whether it's revising that old scene or simply assuming that it's no longer who you are and no longer what you experience, no longer what you believe. Either way, something has to be adjusted. As long as you hold it in mind, it will continue to create. The forgetfulness is the repentance of mind. It's righteousness. It's right consciousness. It's identifying yourself with your ideal. In your ideal, you're not someone who's bullied or victimized, right? So whatever you need to do in terms of the movement of your mind to get to that place, you have to do. In one case, it may be just creating a simple scene where that person who bullied you when you were 10 you're 10 again and he's nice to you. It can be that easy. Or it can just be a couple thoughts you have about how well treated you are now, just acknowledging that everyone in your life is so exceptionally kind, respectful, and nice to you all the time. So you clearly are not in that state anymore. And you can also do something which I've done before, which is you can imagine being yourself now or being the child you were then and having a conversation with yourself as either one of them. The way I had chose to do it was to be a younger version of myself and talk to an older version of myself. Now, you don't want to spend months and years doing that kind of shit, though, because what you'll end up doing is perpetuating a cycle of manifesting healing, the eternal, perpetual task of healing, instead of what you're really trying to do, which is identify with your new desired reality and self. So only do those things if they're really going to help you. You know, don't get caught in a web of having to do all that crap for months and years, because you'll just keep perpetuating healing indefinitely. That's really one of the most pernicious things about self-help, is that people wind up in an endless cycle of healing, never really truly identifying with what they want to experience.